In this week's Specialist Finance Show, I'm joined again by Scott Gordon from Wallace & Stratton. Now we're looking at the advantages for end buyers to buy off plan. Scott.
Yeah, so there's obviously different benefits to purchasing off plan. Probably the main ones are the fact that a lot of the end buyers aren't competing at auction. They're not having to go through those auction costs and expenses of actually securing the property. They've got fixed prices, they know what they're buying. Obviously the benefits of the interest deductibility, the policy of the government has got around that. There's benefits to the tax write-offs you have on the interest, and the other benefits of the bright line test. So you've got the fact that instead of being 10 years waiting before you need get tax outside the capital gains tax, within 5 years is the benefit. So deficits and benefits to purchasing off plan.
Yeah.
The finance costs, the other thing, you don't necessarily have to have those progress payments as the build is underway. It's what we call a builder turnkey finance, and they're having a 10% deposit secures the property. There's no finance cost through until settlement, and then the final settlement is where the purchaser will settle that final amount. So that's another benefit to your cash flow.
Okay, so let's just go back and review some of the things you said there, because at the end of the last week's show we talked about potential buying opportunities for investors. So it's probably just good to highlight the fact that if you're buying new build off plan, you're looking at more attractive LVRs potentially from the lenders, yes, because you're limited to 60% LVR for existing stock, where you can get up to 90% on new build.
Yep.
We're looking at the fact that if you buy existing stock as an investor, you can't deduct your interest as a tax expense, but if you're buying new build, you can. And the last thing you touched on there was the bright line, that it's 5 years, not 10 years. So definitely some big advantages if you're an investor looking at new build versus existing stock.
Absolutely. The other thing to consider is the fact that you're buying a new house that's got the latest technology, up-to-date insulation, lighting, everything's to code. So you've got your maintenance costs and your outgoings are going to be less over that period as well.
Yeah, that's an important point, because I'm sure if you look at the experience overseas, things like energy ratings for rental properties are quite in the focus. I know in the UK there's a big focus. So looking at here, if you want to get ahead of the curve, make sure your rental is up to code, and as you say, the new builds are going to be the latest technology.
Yeah, definitely. In some instances, we've seen people with existing stock or housing freeing that up in the market and liquidating that and applying it to new stock and new investments, which is going to have less maintenance costs and also the tax benefits of it. So that's definitely been a trend. Yeah.
Okay. And what about for home buyers? So away from investors, people that are looking for somewhere to live. Still benefits for them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they have the benefit of, again, like I mentioned earlier, the auction process, or the purchase process and costs involved in that is less. You know what you're purchasing. You've got the less impact on cash flow, because you're purchasing with a deposit and settling at a later date. Again, the same benefits of a new property that's well insulated for your home, for your family. For a first home buyer. There's also some benefit schemes from the government that are applying first home grants. So we've got the Kaingaora first home partner scheme, where they're contributing up to 20% or $200,000 for their first home purchase, as well as the first home first home buyer grant, which has also recently been increased from up to $875,000 for a cap. Which means that's opened up a market for more people to actually get access to that grant, which is $10,000 per person or $20,000 for a couple.
Yeah, okay. And similarly with the investors, if we're looking at the lending side of things, for new build, off plan, higher LVRs available for home buyers as well as for investors, which with the deposit being a big issue for first time buyers particularly, any extra leverage is going to help, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. If you can get into the market with the 10% equity, that certainly makes life easier.
All right. So and just to wrap up, Scott, for any of these buyers, is there anything else that they should be aware of when they're looking at the off-plan purchases?
Yeah, I think key thing obviously is just doing your due diligence. There's a period. There's generally 10 days or so in that contract period that you can do that, and that's engaging with a reputable or a confident lawyer or solicitor who can actually vet the contracts, make sure that it's iron out any issues inside that. Typically, the contracts require don't need too much vetting, but there is worthwhile having a confident or an experienced lawyer who is familiar with off-plan contracts, who can certainly make sure that you've got it in your favour. Key things to review, things like sunset dates, and just making sure that you're comfortable with all aspects of the contract. Every good real estate agent should also recommend that you seek independent legal advice before you sign a contract, and we always recommend you do that.
Yeah. So, like any transaction, no matter what you're buying, do your due diligence, but definitely some pluses for buying off plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott.
No worries.